Alright, so I think we will start soon lah. Okay, so sebelum tadi mula, tadi baca dulu doa. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi yassir wa la tu'assir. Rabbi thammin bil khair. Sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Amin. Alright, so this is topic 3.3, transport in flowering plants. Okay, so this topic is basically the topic that ties everything down together. Okay, it's all about photosynthesis and its products. Okay, so we're not only going to be looking at photosynthesis, but what happens before and what happens after. How does photosynthesis get the materials for it to process, and what happens to the products after undergoing photosynthesis. Okay, so that's basically the gist of the topic lah. Okay, so this is the lesson objectives. I'm not going to go through with this. Now, sekarang I've already shared with you the PDF, right? So you can just copy down the PDF, or if you want to print saja. Okay, just put it in your notebook. But again, I honestly prefer if you copied it down because kamu lebih mudah ingat lah that way. Alright. Now, so this one, let's just have a look a little bit apa this topic, what it is all about. Okay. So first one is we look at the root hair cells and what the main functions are, basically to absorb water and minerals. Okay. Second one, we'll have a look at the importance of ions. Okay, so this one you talk about the ion being absorbed, but here we talk about the two ions that is required. Tapi surprisingly we don't talk about the rest. Bukan ini saja ni, you will see later. Not only this, but there are also some other ions that we need to know. Okay, but ini kena mention explicitly dalam lesson objectives. So we talk about the nitrates and we talk about the magnesium. Alright, dua ni saja yang tadi kena highlight lah. Okay, nitrates and magnesium. Alright, the next thing is we're going to have a look at how water travels. Okay, so pathway of taken by the water. So artinya dari mana ke mana. So actually dari bawah from the roots all the way up to the leaves. Okay, and then the last two is transpiration and translocation. Okay, so basically this topic, okay, it just tries to tie everything down together, the whole story lah. Okay, apa yang berlaku sebelum dan selepas photosynthesis. Okay, so first let's have a look at what photosynthesis is. So it's basically a process, and tadi sudah belajar ni, just a recap lah. So a process where green plants use water and carbon dioxide with sunlight and chlorophyll to make food in the form of glucose. Okay, so di sini ni, if you look here, okay, I written this one as sugar, but to be more specific, kalau tadi cakap specifically, it is glucose. Okay, so sugar ni adalah yang umum. So there are many types of sugars. You have glucose, maltose, sucrose, banyak lagi lah. Tapi kalau tadi to be very specific, the one that is produced after photosynthesis would be glucose. Okay, now we're going to have a look at how the plants get water as well as carbon dioxide. Okay, so it goes from where to where. So tadi perlu tahu macam mana air sama carbon dioxide masuk all the way into the chloroplast where photosynthesis will occur. Okay, so ini patutnya kamu salin lah, tapi I'm not gonna spend time on that. I'm just gonna explain. Okay, so where does water and minerals come from? Now it is all absorbed through the root hair cells. Okay, so dari tanah ia akan diserap. So you can see, okay, it is from here, from the soil. Okay, usually soil water, that's what tadi siram tanah tu, so that it can be absorbed by the root hair cells. Okay, now here we have to consider the concentration of water as well as the concentration of the salts. So kalau kamu lihat di sini, okay, you have soil water, the water concentration will be high, but the salts will be low. And both of these things will enter the plants. Okay, ia akan masuk. So everything will come into the root hair cell. Okay, now walaupun ada dua benda sini, water and salts, tapi the way that they enter the root hair cells will be different. Okay, berbeza. Okay, so water will enter through the process of osmosis because it is from high concentration to low concentration, and it is talking about water and also it passes through the cell membrane di sini. Okay, so di sekeliling ni ada cell membrane. So it fits the criteria of the movement being osmosis. Okay, number one, movement of water concentration. Number two, from high to low. And number three, it passes through a semi-permeable membrane. Okay, so movement of water is by the process of osmosis. Okay, on the other hand, minerals and ions, it is from low concentration to high concentration. Therefore, number one, it cannot be osmosis pasal dia bukan air. And number two, it cannot be diffusion pasal it is from low concentration to high concentration. So this one, for low to high, you will require energy. Okay, and the name of the process, movement of minerals or ions from low concentration to high concentration, okay, that requires energy is called active transport. Okay, so this is where the plants will have to send food here so that it can produce energy to undergo active transport. Okay, so ingatkan ni, it's very very important. Okay, this is why banyak highlight di sini ya. So later you will copy down the notes in your notebook. Okay, next one. Now this one is just general lah. For those of you who have actually, some of you are doing agriculture, right? So you might be familiar with this. Okay, so generally plants need fertilizer unless the soil that it is planted in is already rich in nutrients. Okay, if you do plan to reuse the same soil, then you have to put in fertilizer. Perlu kamu masukkan fertilizer because it is crucial for the growth of the plant. Kalau anda cukup certain ions in it, then you will encounter many problems. Okay, I'll show you some examples later. Now, usually the fertilizers that we use, okay, commercially we use fertilizers that are known as NPK fertilizers. Now, NPK is actually just the short form lah for the three main ions that is very important for the growth of the plant. N is nitrates, okay, P is phosphorus, and K, now in the periodic table, okay, K is used to represent potassium. Okay, so N nitrates, P phosphorus, K potassium. So the fertilizers, okay, it is known as the NPK fertilizer. In fact, kalau kamu cuba lihat, ada ratio-nya di sana tu. Usually if you try to pick up fertilizers, okay, chemical ones, jangan anu tai burung dia ada tulis tu. Okay, but the chemical fertilizers will have a certain ratio of N, P, and K. Okay, and apart from that, magnesium is also important. Okay, you will see later apa ia punya main function. Okay, ni ada yang akan disalin, but here we start to copy down. Now nitrates, okay, nitrates contain nitrogen. Okay, nitrogen is needed to produce amino acids, which is later used to make many types of proteins. Now, if you recall, proteins is used in many things in our body. Number one being production of cells. Now, all cells contain DNA ataupun RNA, okay, diribonucleic acid ataupun ribonucleic acid. Now, these acids are actually produced from amino acids. Therefore, they are actually proteins. Dorang tu adalah proteins. Now, we don't really need to dive into the structural things about these compounds, pasal ia terlalu complex. Okay, next topic we will learn about chemistry. You will see how simple what we learn. Jarang jauh lah bezanya, jauh berhabis. Okay, just to put it into perspective, okay, I'll show you macam mana soalnya. Now, this is the structure of a nitrate ion. Nitrate is NO3 minus. Okay, don't worry about that so much. Tapi ada 1 nitrogen and 3 oxygen. 1 nitrogen, 3 oxygen. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this is one of the simplest things that we learn. But if you see amino acids, it is very complex. Okay, N, H, and then you have C, then O, pecah di sini ya. It is used to form this carboxylic acid group, but we don't learn that yet. But again, ini R ni lagi is very complex, ini panjang lagi ni, will be very long. So that's why in biology we don't really learn about these things, but it's good to know lah supaya kamu faham macam mana bahasa, macam mana damitnya those compounds are. Okay. Next one. Now this is the importance of magnesium. Now magnesium is used in plants because it is used to make the pigment chlorophyll. Now it is similar to the pigment in our blood yang membuat darah tadi warna merah, hemoglobin. Now chlorophyll on the other hand, colornya warna hijau. Okay. Now chlorophyll makes use of magnesium, hemoglobin makes use of iron. But they are technically very similar because both of them are pigments and they are actually proteins. Dikira protein chain ni dorang ni. Okay, and you can see here, my goodness, if you were to learn this, okay, panding kamu. But basically, you see in the middle here, you have magnesium for the chlorophyll, and for the hemoglobin, you have iron in the middle. Alright, but they are very similar structurally. Okay, very similar. And you can see that we don't learn this, it's too complex. Even masuk university pun, for sure, I haven't learned about the structures of these two pigments. Okay, so only those who are very specifically learning organic compounds, organic chemistry maybe, ataupun biology So ini biochemist sudah ni. Okay, let's move on. So you can see here in this example, okay, these are iron deficiency. Now deficiency basically means kekurangan zat. Okay, iron deficiency, if I were to translate this, kekurangan zat. Okay, so you can see, okay, I'm just going to write that down. Hopefully, payah sikit ni nulis sini ni kekurangan zat, the C. Okay, so if you look here in the diagrams, okay, if you don't have enough magnesium, remember magnesium is used to make chlorophyll, right? You can see that the leaves turn slightly yellowish. Okay, and kalau tani biarkan, kalau sudah daun menguning, tani biarkan lagi, and tani bagi bajak, most probably it will die. Okay. On the other hand, if you look at this one, this is plants with nitrogen deficiency ataupun nitrates. Now, nitrates is used for generally making cells, and you can see that if it doesn't have enough nitrogen, it will not produce as many leaves. The plant will not be as developed as plants that have enough nitrates. Okay, so itulah perbezaannya. Tanpa nitrogen ataupun nitrates, plants itu tidak akan dapat membesar. Okay, and this one you can see even though dia cukup magnesium, the plant is still quite well developed, banyak daunnya. Okay, tetapi warnanya berubah. Pasal apa? Because magnesium is used to make chlorophyll. Okay, so you can see that the leaves become slightly yellowish. Okay, next, let's move on. Now, next we move on to the next lesson objective, which is about water. Okay, so ini ada sebagi 4 step, so that's easier for you to understand. Number 1, water enters the root hair cells by osmosis. Okay, so air akan masuk melalui osmosis. So ini you need to explain ni kadang-kadang. And then the water will then move by diffusion through the root cortex cell to the xylem vessels. Now this is in the stems, di dalam stem. Okay, so you can see in this diagram, so water will enter, this is the soil, ini adalah soil, ini adalah root hair cell. Okay, how do you know it's a root hair cell? Because it has this elongated structure that you guys like. Okay, now in the middle here, ini bukan root hair cell, this is known as the root cortex cell, and eventually water will move into the xylem vessels. Now the xylem vessels will be in the stems. Okay, you're ready untuk kena bawa naik ke atas, so we'll see in the next slide. Okay, so from the soil to the root hair cell to the root cortex cell, and then to the xylem vessels in the stem. Okay, the next step is water will have to go up, right? Since air akan pergi ke leaves. Pasal apa leaves? Because the leaves have chloroplasts, and this chloroplast is where photosynthesis takes place. Okay, now it cannot go up by itself because now it's going upwards. Now, kalau dalam physics, we learn that everything in this world is affected by gravitational pull. So air dalam plants pun should be affected by gravitational pull. But okay, how it goes up is because there are two forces. Ada dua force yang menyebabkan air itu boleh naik ke atas ke daun. Okay, number 1 is what we call transpiration pull. Now, the water is a stream, so artinya ia bersambung dari akar sampai ke daun. Okay, it is connected. Okay, and air di daun itu akan hilang. It will be used up as in photosynthesis ataupun ia akan keluar dari stomata. Okay, and because it is lost at the top, so there will be some sort of pull. Sama juga kalau macam kamu bagi hose memasukkan dalam tangki ikan kamu, sekali kamu pump. Okay, kalau kamu pump, dia akan keluar dari hose yang berpump itu, and walaupun kamu berhenti mempump, air itu akan terus keluar. Okay, it's a similar concept. So that is transpiration pull. The second one is because of root pressure, di mana akar dalam tanah itu ia kena tekan oleh tanah. Okay, so because it is so sampit di sana tu kena tekan, so it will push the water upwards. Okay, this one root pressure. Okay, transpiration menarik ke atas, pull, okay, menolak dari bawah. This is why water is able to move up. So here you can see root hair cells, okay, root cortex cell, xylem vessel. Now this is able to go up because of these two forces. Okay, transpiration pull and root pressure. Okay, and eventually it will be able to enter the leaf. Okay, so that will be the last stage. Okay, so you can see here. Okay, water arrives in the leaves and either enters the mesophyll cells through osmosis and is used for photosynthesis. Number one. Number two, some of the water will be evaporated, okay, from the mesophyll cell walls. So if you look in this diagram, you see that blue color, that is basically evaporated water. Air yang sudah berubah menjadi water vapor. Okay, it is a thin film of water, and if it has enough energy, now remember the energy comes from sunlight. So daun-daunan ni kalau masa tengah hari ia panas, even patang pagi. Remember that evaporation takes place in all temperatures, but the higher the temperature, the faster the rate of evaporation. Okay, so di sini, okay, ia akan berubah jadi water vapor and it will move out. Okay, ia akan move dari air space ini out through the stomata. Okay, so air akan keluar dari sini. So ada dua pathways that the water will take. Number one, enter the mesophyll cell, used for photosynthesis, and number two, the water will go to the surface of the mesophyll cell and, okay, it starts to evaporate, and then it will diffuse to the air space and finally diffuse out to the air through the stomata. So ini penting, kamu perlu tahu apa ni stomata ni. This is basically this part here. I think tadi sudah belajar tak? Now, main function, kenapa air ni mesti keluar? Simple saja, it is to maintain homeostasis. Now, homeostasis means you want to maintain the best optimal temperature, optimal pH. Okay, but here it's mainly to maintain the temperature of the plant. Remember that in plants, in all living things, we have enzymes, right? Now, enzymes are very pH and temperature sensitive. So, kalau sekali terlampau panas, let's say 60 degrees Celsius, okay, and the temperature is too hot, the plant doesn't have enough water to remove the temperature, the heat, then the plant will start to wilt. Ia akan mula melayu. Okay, so bila sudah ia start layu, okay, eventually kalau anda kena bagi air, it will dry out and die, right? So that's why it's important for water to undergo this transpiration. Membuang air itu fungsinya adalah untuk membuang temperature yang terlalu tinggi. Okay, it protects the plants. Okay, next one. So this is how the overall picture of how water will travel in the plants. Okay. Siapa yang keluar tadi ya? Orang dia sedang ambil tendon. Itu dah. Okay, so this is how it is flowing, okay, dalam plants. So water in the soil will be absorbed into the root hair cells through osmosis, okay, and then it will diffuse to the root cortex, to the xylem, then it goes upward movement through the xylem, okay. The two forces that will help will be the transpiration pull, okay, and the root pressure, okay. So this is what will help it to go upwards, and then it will enter the leaves, diffuse into the leaves, and diffuse out through the stomata. But there's also another path. When it goes to the leaves, it goes and into the mesophyll cells, and that one is it goes through osmosis. Okay, so ada lagi ni ya. So tujuannya ada terbagi kepada dua. Okay, osmosis. Okay, masuk in mesophyll. Okay, so that's another path for step number 7. Okay, so ia akan undergo osmosis dalam ancestral cells. Okay, so this is the overall pathway. We need to know this. Okay, kalau kamu lihat di bawah ni, if you look at the bottom of every slides dalam notes tu sekarang, there will be text in grey. Now those are the lesson objectives. So that's why kalau kamu nampak ada tu, most probably it will be very very important. Okay, so kalau menjadi nota pun sekarang jangan skip lah. If you see these things, you need to copy down the notes. Okay. Next one, how does carbon dioxide travel? Now this is very simple. Carbon dioxide is directly taken in through the stomata of the leaves. Okay, so kalau kamu lihat di sini, okay, carbon dioxide will enter, and then here you will have the air space. Now inside the air space, that's where basically the gas exchange of gas will happen lah. Okay, basically. Okay, so simple saja. Okay, carbon dioxide ia masuk through the stomata. Okay, and it diffuses into the mesophyll cells, which will allow it to be used for photosynthesis. Okay, now next one. Okay, we're almost done. Wow, laju saya explain. Nice. Alright, so the next one is transpiration. Okay, now transpiration is basically the evaporation of water at the surface of the spongy mesophyll cells in the leaves. Okay, di sini yang tadi followed by loss of water vapor through the stomata. So basically it will diffuse outwards through the stomata. This hole here, asal saja ada lubang di bawah leaf. Okay, naturally this is called stomata. So this stomata allows water to exit. Okay, kita tulis. Okay, so stomata. Oh wow, payahnya nulis. Okay, yang masuk ialah CO2. Yang keluar ada dua. Okay, it will be O2, oxygen, as well as water vapor. Okay, so stomata, many things happen. Okay, that's why, if you recall, dalam the previous topic, we talk about leaves being banyak. Surface area mesti basar. Surface area is basar because it has to help the plant to absorb in carbon dioxide. Okay, I mean carbon dioxide masuk dari stomata, and also it has to release water. So this is why there's a large surface area of leaves. Okay, it is to allow for these things to come in. Okay, carbon dioxide come in, and water and oxygen to come out. Now oxygen has no real benefit to plants. It is used in plants for respiration, but the main compound that goes out through the stomata will be water, right? So the water through the xylem vessels in a continuous transpiration stream. So it moves through a transpiration stream. Stream ni, tahu apa maksudnya kan? Stream artinya ia bersambung. Okay, macam kalau air ni, when you talk about stream, it is continuous. So the water is actually continuous from the roots all the way up to the leaves. Okay, dari daun, okay, ke stem, ke leaf, we have one long stream of water. Okay, again, I just wanna update this. Okay, so this one, transpiration. Okay, since it's a stream, like I said tadi, saya explain sudah, it produces a tension or pull on the water in the xylem by the leaves, because the water will be consistently leaving. So ia akan sentiasa keluar. So kalau kamu lihat pagi-pagi, subuh-subuh, okay, you will have air ambon kan. Most of the air ambon itu comes from transpiration of leaves. Even though masa malam stomata itu damit, okay, stomata jadi damit, tetapi masih juga ada air yang keluar. Okay, so that's why tadi ada air ambon. Alright, so we're done with transpiration. Now kalau ada soalan boys, feel free to talk. Boys, kamu kamu stream dah on dari tadi kah? Oh my god, atau buang masa. Sekarang kamu lihat video saja. Okay, luckily I recorded this. Oh my god, kamu dah bunyi-bunyi. Ya Allah. Aduh. Nah tak. Okay, so you can enter now. Oh, so dari tadi saya explain the drum lihat lah tak? Bagus But don't worry, okay. Luckily I did record it. Okay, so sekarang you can just watch it lah. Ha? Alright. Memang macam orang gila. Dia dah mau bunyi-bunyi. Mana apa? Next time, kita rasa. Apa? Sorry? Oh, okay, faham. Yeah, that works as well. But never mind, it's okay. Lepas ni, I'll upload it to YouTube and you can just watch it from there. Okay? Now, transpiration ni, again, kalau in the old syllabus, it is actually very, very important. Sangat-sangat penting. Now, if you, that's a good point. Kalau kamu dah banyak credit, then you can just look at the notes. Okay? And as I narrate it, you can just go through the slides lah. For those who have extra credit, kamu boleh lihat directly lah, live video. Alright, so in the old syllabus, transpiration was one of the most important processes yang kamu perlu tahu. Okay, but for this new syllabus, it only mentions about this, but I will include some details as well from the old syllabus. Okay, which is functions as well as your punya factors. Okay, so transpiration has many factors. Okay, sini ada 4. Okay, function yang utama adalah, of course, transpiration is the transport of water, right? From the roots all the way to the leaves, and then water will leave through the stomata. But apart from that, it also helps to transport mineral ions. Okay, remember that mineral ions cannot move by itself, so it is also carried in the xylem vessels all the way up to the leaves. Alright, and why does it need to go up? Because the leaves is where photosynthesis occurs. Okay, now remember that for photosynthesis to occur, you need to make chloroplasts, which contain chlorophyll. So remember magnesium? So magnesium has to go upwards, okay, to the leaves because you need to produce more chloroplasts. Okay, the next function is to keep the cells turgid. Turgid maksudnya kancang lah, so that it can stand upright to support the plant. So artinya di sini, okay, kalau sekiranya kurang air, boys, the cells will become flaccid. Bila flaccid, the plants will have an appearance of being wilted, right? So the plants will wilt. Atau bahasa Melayunya, layu lah. Okay, so the main reason is because kalau ada cukup air, the cells will be turgid. Kalau kurang air, the cells will become flaccid. Okay, now this is especially true for herbs and shrubs. Kalau trees itu, because the xylem vessels is strengthened with lignin and it's quite big, so anda nampak lah kalau ia akan layu tu, anda lah nampak ia pending. Okay, but in herbs and shrubs, you will be able to see that it will become wilted. Nampak tu, the stems akan jadi menyengit sedikit. Okay, the next one is providing water to leaf cells for photosynthesis. Okay, obviously. And the last one is to keep the leaves cool by evaporation. So this is very important. Basically, this is homeostasis. Okay, ini adalah homeostasis. Alright, now let's look at the factors affecting rate of transpiration. Okay, so di sini ada 4. There are 4 factors that can affect transpiration. Number 1, temperature. Okay, lagi panas, boys, lagi tinggi transpiration. Pasal apa? Tadi perlu membuang panas. Okay, so temperature, lagi panas, lagi tinggi transpiration. Okay, the next one is humidity. Now, some of you might not know what humidity is. Now, humidity basically means, okay, means the amount of water vapor in the air. Berapa banyak air di dalam udara. Now, why is this so important? Now, kalau kamu fikir secara logik, boys, let's say for example, di sekolah lah, let's say, di sekolah, then let's say parents kamu drive kereta masuk dalam sana tu, and then let's say banyak kereta lah di luar. Gate 4 tu banyak keretanya. Senang kan dah keluar kereta bapa kamu. Memang payah kan? Okay, same thing with the water. So for example, you have the leaves. Okay. Oh, dah mati. Okay. So let's say di sini banyak air. Okay, this is water vapor. Now, if it were to try to move out, kalau itu terlampau banyak water vapor tu, okay, then it will be very difficult for it to move out pasal sini sudah concentrated kan. Tetapi kalau let's say sini ni ada banyak water vapor, Okay, let's say the outside of the leaf has not that many water vapor, then it's easier for the water vapor inside to diffuse out. Remember that diffusion, it's always from high to low. Kalau from high to medium, makin perlahan dia. Tapi kalau from high to low, will be much faster. Okay, so humidity, semakin banyak water vapor, semakin perlahan transpiration. Okay, so ni tadi kalau temperature, okay, ia positively affect transpiration. Higher temperature, okay, higher temperature means higher rate of transpiration for temperature. Kalau humidity, higher humidity, slower transpiration. Okay, the next one is wind speed. Now, wind speed maksudnya udara di sekeliling planet. So, what happens kalau ia makin banyak angin? Okay, what will happen is it is removing the water vapor. Okay, it will remove the water vapor. So, kalau semakin kurang water vapor around the leaf, that means it will be easier for the water to be diffused out. Okay, so makin senanglah diffusionnya. So artinya lagi banyak angin, boys. Okay, lagi banyak angin, lagi senang untuk transpiration to occur. So as wind increases, okay, transpiration also increases. And last sekali, light intensity. Now, light intensity ni, it affects the stomata. Okay, kalau sekiranya light intensity makin tinggi, makin tarang hari, stomata semakin basar. Okay, but we're not gonna look into that too much. So bila stomata semakin basar, okay, similar juga dengan temperature tu selalunya high light intensity, high temperature. Tapi yang ni specifically pasal stomata lah juga. So this will also affected positively. So maksudnya di sini, okay, semakin tarang cahaya, okay, semakin naik rate of transpiration. Okay, so antara empat tadi hanya satu saja yang affected negatively, which is humidity. Okay, only humidity causes transpiration to become slower. Okay, alright, so let's move on. Okay, only this one. Okay, temperature naik, transpiration naik. Wind speed naik, transpiration naik. Light intensity naik, transpiration pun naik. Tapi kalau humidity naik, transpiration menurun. Okay, so ini basically what you can see, the explanation will be in here, di sini this slide. Okay, so you can see temperature, effectnya increase. Kalau temperature increase, effect increase. Wind speed increase, effect increase. Light intensity increase, effect pun increase. Humidity is the only one that will slow down transpiration. Okay, ingat ini. Okay, you will see it's quite popular di soalan kalau dulu-dulu. Alright, we move on to the next slide. Translocation. Now, translocation is basically the movement of sugar produced in photosynthesis to all other parts of the plant for respiration and other processes. Now, as you know, banyak proses. Okay, for example, making new cells, repair. Okay, active transport. Remember? Okay. Now, this all occurs in the phloem cells. Okay. Now, xylem and phloem usually are connected very close together. Dua-dua ni hampir. Okay, now the phloem moves food substances to other parts of the plant where they are needed for processes such as growing, okay, so making new cells, growing and making new cells. Second one is for storage. Now storage, it goes either to bulbs or tubers. Now bulbs or tubers ini basically fruit and roots. Okay, so fruits kamu tahulah Tapi kalau macam roots itu maybe might not click straight away, but for example potatoes So you have potato. So potato is a form of storage of food as well. Okay, so macam-macam jenis potato so ataupun even like sweet potato dan yam. So all of those things, okay, basically is storage of food. And the last one is developing seeds. So again, this is also in fruits, okay, because the seeds needs to prepare itself for germination. So it needs to have storage of food for that to actually occur. Okay, that's why kalau tadi makan biji usually full of carbohydrates as well as fats. Okay, a bit of fats. Okay, next one. Transport in the phloem takes place both up and down the stem, whereas for xylem, it just goes upwards from the roots all the way to the leaves. Okay, so translocation is a new concept that is introduced in the syllabus. Baru kena introduce-nya. So this one in the old syllabus kamu tidak akan jumpa translocation unless you're doing pure biology. Okay, so let's move on. Now, how does it occur? Macam mana boleh ia berlaku? Now, the phloem actually is a specialized cell. Tapi tadi dah belajar masa topic 1 masa tu. Okay, it has structures that is adapted for its function of moving food as well as moving apa ni orang? Ada dua food sucrose and amino acids. Okay. Now, the first specialized structure ataupun adapted structure is the sieve tubes. Okay, so you can see here, this is the sieve tube. You have the sieve plates, right? So this has no nuclei, and each sieve has a perforated end. Okay, perforated ni maksudnya adalah ia ada berlubang-lubang. Okay, now again, this could be very small, very minute, because we're talking about cells here. Okay, but perforated means ia berlubang-lubang. Okay, so its cytoplasm connects one cell to the next. So artinya kalau xylem langsung dah ada ni, kosong ni. Okay, it's just a hollow tube. But for phloem, ia ada these sieve plates. So artinya cytoplasm di dalam ni will be connected. Okay, it will be connected because of the perforations, ada lubang-lubang dalam itu. Okay, but how it is moved up and down, now that is actually controlled by the companion cells. So you can see here, every sieve tube will have companion cells. Okay. Now, the companion cell is the one that gives it energy. Okay, in the phloem requires energy. So usually you have one or more companion cells attached to each sieve tube to provide this energy. Okay, so a sieve tube, okay, is completely dependent on its companion cells. Maksudnya di sini companion cells itu mesti ada for this for the food to be able to be moved through the phloem. Okay, so you can see the phloem is much more complex than the xylem vessels. Xylem vessels is basically a tube saja, macam hose. But this one, since your direction itu up and down, so you have to have something that controls that direction, and that will be the companion cells. Okay, and what is being carried inside the phloem, boys? Now, so dalam syllabus lama we talked about food saja yang dibawa dalam phloem cells. But here in the new syllabus, it mentions that it is the movement of sucrose as well as amino acids. So these are the two main compounds that is moving in the xylem vessels. Remember that it goes to banyak tempat for storage, for growth, as well as for making the seeds, right? So that's why you can see phloem is a bit more complex because of the direction. Okay, it's unidirectional, so it goes up and it also goes downwards. Okay, I think two or three more slides. So we also need to know the differences between xylem and phloem. Now, xylem, the type of transport is physical process. Basically, it is being pulled by the transpiration pull, ataupun it is being pushed by the root pressure. On the other hand, phloem requires energy. Now, this comes from the companion cells, right? So perbezaannya ini xylem itu tidak perlu buat apa-apa. But for the phloem, the movement of food in phloem, it actually requires the phloem to do something. It requires energy. Okay. Second thing is substances transported in xylem will be water and minerals going upwards, but for phloem, it moves product of photosynthesis, which is sugar ataupun sucrose, to be more specific, sucrose, as well as amino acids. All right. So phloem does a lot more work than xylem. Now, the xylem and phloem are distributed differently in roots and stems. In roots, xylem forms a central column, and then it forms a solid support. Okay, and the phloem will be around it. And the and the phloem will be around it. In the the phloem is towards the center, but it's outside the xylem. So sekarang xylem tu tengah-tengahnya, phloem akan ada di siring. Okay. On the other hand, in the stem, the transport tissues of xylem and vessel are grouped in vascular bundles. So it's something like this. Okay, I will just show you in the next slide. Okay, so you can see here, this is in the roots. Okay, so the roots, for structure, it requires the xylem. Okay, pasal roots ni, it couldn't be too thick juga kan, as you know, because it's trying to permeate into the soil, right? So how does it permeate into the soil? It has to have a strong core. You must say. So that core is provided by xylem. Remember that xylem is enriched, kind of kuatkan dengan this material known as lignin, Lignin. Okay, just to make it a bit more, a bit stronger than other types of cells or tissues. And you can see here, this is the core, and then you see the phloem, it is on the side. Okay, so this is in roots. Okay, now on the other hand, for stems, will be a bit different. You can see that these two cells are joined together, okay, and form this thing here known as the vascular bundle. So this will be the phloem, okay, inside will be the xylem. Okay, and if this goes to the roots, to the leaves, okay, usually in xylem, bawah, phloem di atas, but again, it could be different. It's not always like that, but it will be in the leaves, it will be the xylem and phloem in the form of a vascular bundle. Okay, so if you look at the cross section of a leaf, okay, it will always be like this dalam leaf. Alright, so these are the differences between xylem and phloem. Okay, let's just go through again. Xylem, okay, it carries water and mineral upwards, and then prosesnya ialah menggunakan transpiration pull and root pressure. On the other hand, phloem carries food, sugars, and amino acids. Okay, goes upwards as well as downwards, and because of that, it requires energy. Okay, kalau tidak ada energy tu, then it's not payah kita mengontrol lah macam xylem. Xylem just goes upwards, the phloem indah. Okay, and then in the roots and stems, okay, for roots, xylem is in the core, tengah-tengah, xylem tengah-tengah, phloem will be at the side. Okay, but in stems, it just forms vascular bundle, okay, as a ring, macam ring tadi. Okay, and that part outside is phloem, the part inside will be xylem. Okay, so before we end, I'm just going to end the recording dulu, then you can have Q&A session. Now, are there any questions, boys? Ada soalan so far? I know it's a bit fast, but we've covered this a few times sudah kan, actually nya. Ada soalan? Anyone yang ada soalan? How is it? Now again, if you have any questions after this, you are free to ask. So we can redo the quiz, but this time let's do it live, supaya saya boleh bagi feedback. Okay, we're going to discuss the quiz. Okay, so kejap set up dulu. I'm just going to close this recording.